How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Fourth and Long podcast with your host, Alec Pecano, and co-host, Bradley Walker. And tonight's show is a busy one, so we're going to get right into it. We are going to preview 3 games today, and then on tomorrow night's show, we are going to preview the rest of the games. Oh, no, wrong thing. Share screen. Not what we need. Give me a second. I meant to do this before we got on.
That's okay.
Okay. I think we're in good shape now. Let me do this with that. So we're going to start with, you know what? We're going to do it like this. It's a lot easier. We're going to start with Kansas State, Arizona. Give me 3 keys for Kansas State to win and beat Arizona.
I picked K-State in our picks on this game on Tuesday. Again, I think it comes down to quarterback play. I think that's one of the reasons why K-State beat Tulane last week. Number 2, obviously, don't commit stupid penalties and win the turnover battle. Obviously, that's the number one thing. Don't make stupid penalties. If you, not saying you can't turn the ball over, but it would be good if you had, a big Easter egg there in the turnover, in number of turnovers. And, K-State's at home, use the home crowd. Arizona's got to come to Kansas, use the home crowd as an advantage, make them, have false start penalties and pre-snap penalties and stuff like that. Make them put pressure on them in the beginning of the game.
Okay, so my 3 keys are, my first one's right along the same lines as you. I think I also took Kansas State, but looking at the stats, it looks like I think the only issue Kansas State might have is keeping the duo of Noah Fafita and T-Mac, because I still don't know how to pronounce his first name, so I just call him T-Mac. I don't know how they're gonna deal with that. If they can keep T-Mac under 100 yards receiving, they should be in line for a win. Key number 2 is pressure. Pressure. Put pressure on Fafita. If you let him stand back there in the pocket and you don't put any pressure on him, he's going to pick you apart to the tune of probably 100 to 200 passing yards, maybe even more. And in 3, and this is for Kansas State, run the football. Shrink the clock. If you run the football consistently and you can gain 5 to 10 yards a carry, keep running the ball. That's going to zap the clock, and that's what good teams do, is they establish the run, which opens later in the game. What people don't realize is if you run the ball to start the game, later on in the game, that's going to bring Arizona is going to have to bring more people down in the box, more safeties, more defensive backs, more linebackers. Then you can hit them over the top with an explosive pass. So those are my 3 keys. Next game, Wisconsin, Alabama. And again, I'll let you give your 3 keys to this game first for either Wisconsin or Bama.
I'll go for Bama because I got to see them play last week against USF. Keys, put the ball in Jaden Milroe's hands. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now. And also get the ball to Ryan Williams, their 17-year-old wide receiver. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he is the youngest player in college football right now at 17.
That's crazy.
Most kids that are 17 are still in high school. He is in his freshman year of college or at University of Alabama. The kid is a speedster. Get the ball in his hands. They call him Hollywood. And obviously, they have a good defense. Keep Wisconsin. Well, you know what? Let's go back to what Alex just said about Kansas State. Run the football, control time of possession. If you win time of possession most of the time, you'll win the football game.
Okay, so you took Alabama. I'm going to take Wisconsin. Tyler Van Dyke, if you're listening to this podcast, if your receivers aren't open, check the ball down to your running back. The running back is your best friend. That's key number one. If your receivers aren't open, check it down to the running back. Key number two, offensive line. Create time for your quarterback. Don't let those Bama defensive linemen get downhill and be pressuring the quarterback every play. If that happens, you're in big trouble. And number three, like my co-host just said about Alabama, Wisconsin, establish the run. Run the ball. Run it. And the last game we're going to preview today is another SEC game. It is LSU South Carolina. And I will go first this time, and I'll take South Carolina. Okay. South Carolina, if you're going to beat LSU, right, the first key is establish the run game. I don't care whether it's the design QB run or handing it off to your running back. Run the football. 2, no dumb penalties, and no dumb penalties on offense or defense. Be smart. If a guy at LSU walks up to you and tries to coax you into taking a penalty, walk away, go to the sideline. And 3, force turnovers and use some trick plays. And I'll let you go now.
Well, what I would do, LSU, obviously Brian Kelly, former Notre Dame coach, he's there. I would say the one of the keys is to take the crowd out of the game. Maybe come out, punch South Carolina. If you're on the road, you're in Columbia, come at them, score, get on the board first, maybe score 2 touchdowns or something. Silence that crowd, which a lot of people don't give the fans of South Carolina a lot of credit. One of the loudest stadiums in the SEC. So, get them, don't let them dictate the game. Don't let them cause penalties and stuff. And I have to agree with Alec on that. Stay away from stupid penalties. Don't let these guys get in your face and push you around. You're on the road. You're the ranked team coming into this game. Don't let your ego think, oh, well, this is just going to be a throwaway game. It's not, because South Carolina is a very good football team. They have to be prepared. And thirdly, again, limit the turnovers and penalties, and you'll win the game. But I think we both picked South Carolina, so I think the Gamecocks will win on Saturday. But if LSU is going to win, they're going to have to not be stupid, take the crowd out of the game early on in Columbia.
Okay, next order of business is, what do we have? Okay, previews. Bold predictions. And I will let you go first.
I have 4, bud, and actually one of the games we just talked about, I think South Carolina will upset LSU. Boston, excuse me, let me go. That's one of my ones. Alabama is going to destroy Wisconsin. I could see a 21 or 28 point win for Alabama on Saturday. I know they're in Madison, but Alabama's a good football team. The Missouri-Boston College game, I think, will be closer than a lot of people think it's going to be. BC had that big win over FSU. As I predicted it, I think the first show I did with Alec, I predicted Missouri to be the SEC representative in one of the 12 playoff teams. Still think that's going to happen. And the game that we're going to call in a couple of days, I think Colorado State takes Colorado out, and even more fire for Deion Sanders and his sons in Colorado to have to handle.
Okay, so my third bold prediction is that the Colorado State game, both teams combine, the total I think is like 59.5 or something. I think they combine for 103 points.
Okay.
So I think defense is going to be optional and not very likely. Number 2, and some people might say I'm crazy for this, because this is this team's first year as a Division I FBS football school. But I think Kennesaw State beats San Jose State in week 3. And number 1, bold prediction, Memphis and Florida State combine for 110 points. And next is, let me make sure we have this right, stat predictions and then players to watch. And then we talk about the Pac-12. So stat predictions, I will go first.
Okay.
I have my number 3 stat prediction for this week is Miami of Ohio quarterback Brett Gabbert throws for, and you'll notice a theme here, throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against Cincinnati. My number 2 stat prediction for this week is Kai Robichaux and Travian Ward of Boston College combined for 90 yards rushing and 2 rushing TDs. And my number 1 stat prediction for this week is Colorado State quarterback Braden Fowler Nicolosi throws for 310 yards passing and 5 passing touchdowns. And the game me and my co-host will be calling Saturday night, Colorado State. And I'll let you go now.
I'll start with number 3, Bud. I think running back Mario Anderson of Memphis will run for 100 yards and score 2 touchdowns against Florida State. Florida State has some issues with run defense. I'll see, that happening. USF quarterback Byron Brown will run for 150 yards against Southern Miss Saturday at 7:00. And my number 1, we just talked about him. I think Ryan Williams will catch not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns against Wisconsin.
Okay, now we get to our players to watch, and I will let you go first again.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and just talk about Ryan Williams. He's one of my guys to watch. Again, guys, if you don't know, he is the youngest player in college football right now. Through 2 games, he has 6 catches, 207 yards, and 3 touchdowns, including an 84-yard touchdown against USF. He can take the top off the Wisconsin defense. I think they're going to have issues covering him this week as of his speed. The South Carolina, I have one of their defensive guys in Lenoris Sellers. They're going to have their hands full with LSU. I think he's wait a minute, is he?
You mean their quarterback?
I'm sorry, that's their quarterback. I read my notes wrong. Yes. Against Kentucky, he was 11 for 15 with 2 touchdowns. He had 159 yards in that game. Look for him to be another important factor in a South Carolina win over LSU at home on Saturday. And my last one, all right, Billy Napier, get your out of your Start DJ Lagway, because that's the only way you're going to beat Texas A&M at home. That's going to be a tough road to climb against them, but they're going to win. If they don't start him, I think Mertz, they're going to be in trouble and they'll get behind. And if you get behind against the Aggies, it's going to be trouble brewing in Gainesville, if it's not already trouble.
Okay, my 3 players to watch. My number 3 is also a quarterback, Ethan Vasco from Coastal Carolina. First 2 games he's played pretty good. And I think Tim Beck and Coastal Carolina half founder Grayson McCall replacement. Number 2 is Indiana's Justice Ellison. He runs with purpose. He, I believe, has ran for 80 yards the first 2 games combined. And then number 1 is TCU wide receiver Savion Williams. And now we are going to briefly talk about the Pac-12. And I'm not going to say rumor, but the news that has come out about it of Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State all joining the Pac-12 in 2026 for football. What do you think of this move for these 4 schools?
Well, and me and Alec were talking pre-show. I didn't even know the conference still existed. I thought it was completely gone, but there are still 4 teams within the conference. First of all, before these 4 schools move out, the Mountain West requires that they pay an exit fee of $18 million apiece. So again, these 4 schools are going to have to pay the Mountain West $18 million to leave the conference to begin with. Now, that's 2 years from now. We're talking 2026, 2027. But is it good for the conference? Obviously, yeah, because I think the Pac-12 wants to get back in now that we're in the 12-team playoff. If you have a Power 6, if you want to say a Power 6 with the 6 conferences, that's fine. But is it good for these schools? Why not? I mean, you're moving from them. I mean, not that I'm dissing on the Mountain West by any means of the imagination, but you're going to the Pac-12 that at one time was a pretty good conference. And the funny thing is the conference did so well in its final year, then it broke up. So, but yeah, I think it's good for the 4 schools, but we'll see how it all plays itself out over the next couple years.
I'm right around. I feel the same way. And then the other rumor I heard is they're trying to get Stanford and Cal to also come back to the Pac-12 to get away from the crumbling ACC. Because I think everybody knows the ACC. It's inevitable that the ACC is going to fall apart, and teams are going to leave the ACC and go to either the Big Ten or the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to get Stanford and Cal to come back. Why then wouldn't you go after Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC and try to get them to come back? Not that it'll work, because I don't think those teams will leave the Big Ten, but it's worth a try. But now we are going to give you rest of season record predictions for Texas Tech, Maryland, and the University of South Florida. So, college football scores. That's standings. So we're going to start with USF. Let me find the American. So let me see. First of all, let me see on the list who I put first. I think it was USF, but I'm not sure. It was Texas Tech. So it went Texas Tech, USF, Maryland. Okay. Back to that. So we have to go to the Big Ten first. I apologize. I should have done this before the show.
Oh, no, it's okay, bud. I sometimes have when I'm pulling stuff up to show my co-host, no big deal.
Schedule. Okay, so Maryland.
Okay.
They've got Virginia, We're going to go win, loss, win. Okay, so we start with Virginia. Do they beat Virginia this week?
No.
I think same thing. I think they lose to Virginia, so that's 0-1. They beat. It would be a laugh. It'd be laughable if they lost to Villanova.
True, I agree.
I don't think they will. So they're 1-1. Indiana. Toss up.
Yeah.
It could go either way. I'm going to say when. I'm going to say when. So that's 2-1. Northwestern. When.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
3-1. USC. Loss.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
3-2. Minnesota win. 4-2. Oregon loss. 4-3.
Yep.
Rutgers. They're improving, but I can see that being a win. 5-3. Iowa.
Loss.
Would you call this a loss? So 5-4, and Penn State.
I'll call that a loss too.
So what does that bring their final record to? So 5-5. Would that be bowl eligible?
Have they won a game yet, bud?
They're 1-1 right now.
Yeah. So they would finish the season 6-6. They would be bowl eligible at that point. Yes.
Okay, so 6-6. Our final record for Maryland is 6-6. Now, so we flipped that. So now we go to the ACC, and we're going to do the Big 12, and we're going to go to past the Big 12. No. Let's make it easier on ourselves. Just scrolling all the way through Big 12. And let's go to. That's interesting. Colorado doesn't have a logo. Poor Colorado. They're getting disrespected.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. So far, Texas Tech is 1-1. They've got North Texas this week. I'm going to say that's a win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I hate to go against the American, but yeah, I think they'll win that game.
Then they've got Arizona State next week. That's a win.
Okay, I agree.
So that makes them 4-1.
4-1. Yeah, 3-1.
3-1. Yeah. Cincinnati's a win, so that's 4-1. Arizona loss.
Yeah, I'd say 4-2.
Baylor easy win, 5-2. TCU coin toss maybe.
I'd say loss.
Loss. So that's 4-3. No, 5-3.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State win, 6-3. Colorado win.
Yeah.
7-3. Oklahoma State. Now, I think lost 7-4. West Virginia win.
So they finish 8-4.
8, yeah. That's fair enough. Okay, now we get to. Let's see how much we agree on USF. There's going to be some games I think we have different. So it's on. Where is. There it is. So USF's 1-1 right now. They've got Southern Miss this week. Easy win.
Yep.
So 1-0. Miami lost. As much as I want to see them beat Miami, I don't think it happens.
So you got 1-1?
Yeah. What about you?
I think they beat Miami. I think that's the upset that gets the spark. They lost to Alabama. I think they beat It's going to be close, but I think they beat Miami.
So you got them going 2-0. Tulane, that's a win.
Yep, I agree.
So 3-1. You know what? I'm going to switch that Miami too. I think they beat Miami, just for the heck of it. So they're 3-0. Memphis, which
That's
is
a
another
lot.
game we will be calling.
That's a Friday night. Yeah, that'll be one of the conference losses that they have this season against Memphis. I think they lose that football game.
I think they lose to Memphis too. So they're now 4-2. No, 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
UAB win.
Yeah, they win. They lost to UAB last year. They win this year. Yep.
So 6-2. Florida Atlantic. I think this is going to be a win.
Yeah, even though, but it's on the road. We lost to them last year too. I think we go down there and beat their butts off in their house.
So that is 7-2. No, yeah, no, 8. Right?
They would if we have them beating Southern Miss, Miami, Tulane, they would be at that point 4-1. They lose to Memphis, 4-2, 5-2. They'd be 6-2.
6-2
after the FAU game. Yeah.
Oh, Navy.
They beat Navy on the road last year. It's at Raymond James. I think they knocked them off again. I know that was a tough win a year ago, but that game could be a toss-up too because I don't know how Navy's playing so far this year, and by that time we won't know, but that's a toss-up with that one.
Okay, so if they win that, that's 7-2. Charlotte
win.
Easy win, 8-2. And I don't know if Biff Poggi will be around for that game. He might get fired. Tulsa win 9-2, and then
right.
I'm sorry, but we don't lose to teams that are named after food.
No, I think I honestly, Bud, I think the only two games that I can see, unless barring any major injuries, would be Miami and Memphis. Would be the two games they lose for the rest of the season.
So that's 11-2.
Conference play. I mean, we should be in the American Championship game this year. We should be one of the teams in the American. Hopefully hosting it. That would be great. That I get to cover that game. That would be great.
Okay. And then we can also talk about why is Billy Napier dodging the question who his quarterback's going to be this week?
It shouldn't even be a question because the Gators need to win this game this week anyway, because the teams they play later on in the season, it's going to be tough to beat them. So he needs to make the decision. I mean, obviously, I think he was one of the reasons why Mertz transferred from Wisconsin down to Florida was because of Billy Napier and the style of offense he runs. But seeing DJ run last week, or the week before, actually, I think week 1 when they lost to Miami. So I can't see why you wouldn't start DJ. That's just my opinion. So
see, what I've been reading is he's like, oh, Graham Mertz is going to be our starter if he's healthy and able to play. Why? He's there. You have DJ Lagway in the quarterback room. Why wouldn't he be the starter moving forward?
Right.
We've seen this movie before. I've seen it as an Ohio State fan. When we had, and tell me what you think about this quarterback room. We had Dwayne Haskins, JT Barrett, and Joe Burrow in the same quarterback room one year. And what happened? We ended up losing Burrow because he transferred to LSU, and we know how that ended up. They ended up winning the Natty.
They did.
So apparently, from articles I've read, is apparently Burrow was supposed to be the starter over Haskins and JT Barrett that year. But then he got hurt and had like a wrist or ankle injury. And that's why he never played at Ohio State. That's why he ended up transferring. Which at that time, the transfer portal wasn't really as big as it is now.
Right, correct. It was I think it may have been in the early stages of what it is now. Yeah.
And let's give our updated coach's hot seat after 2 weeks of the season. Give me 3 coaches you think are on the hot seat and their 1 through 10 of how hot their seat is.
Mike Norvell's got to be number 1, especially if they lose to Memphis on Saturday. I think his seat has got to be in the 8 or 9 category. But yeah, he's got to be up there as one of those teams. Who is the coach at Notre Dame? I don't know the guy's name.
Marcus Freeman, former Ohio State defensive coordinator.
He's on the hot seat. I think his seat got a little bit hotter after they lost to Northern Illinois. And if they lose this week, yeah, he's got to be in a 7 or an 8, 6 or 7 or an 8 on the hot seat there. Trying to think of somebody else.
Biff
the obvious ones would be Billy Napier, but we've talked about him too much. Trying to
Biff
think.
Poggi at Charlotte.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, Charlotte, they're a new member. They came into the American last year. I mean, they're not really. They're more of for baseball and softball more than they are for football. So yeah, I mean, he may not be at the Charlotte game by the end of the season when they play USF. He might already be at a 7 or an 8 or maybe even a 9, as far as I'm concerned with that football team.
So those were your 3. Okay, I'll give you mine. Number 1, Sonny Cumbie at Louisiana Tech. And I think they've done average the first 2 weeks. So I'm putting it at a 5.5 right now. But if they keep losing, that can easily become an 8 or a 9 or even a 10, and they bring in somebody else. Number 2, Will Hall at Southern Miss, who USF plays this week. I think if Southern Miss loses to USF and they look awful, I think Will Hall might get his exit papers, and he might be locked out of the facility come Monday when they go back to work for their game next week. But right now he sits at I'm going to say a 6, but that can easily be a 7 or an 8. And then the last one, and this one is going to surprise some people. I know they beat App State. And yes, I'm going there. Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Sorry, Clemson fans. Dabo is on the hot seat. Because I don't think they're winning 9 games this year. I don't. I think they lose at least 2 or 3 more games. And I think the boosters at Clemson say, look, we need somebody new in here that's going to use the transfer portal. And it's not that Dabo's a bad recruiter, but he doesn't use the transfer portal. There's 3 teams that didn't use the transfer portal. Clemson, Navy, and Army. And Clemson's in there with 2 service academies, which, okay, I understand the service academies don't really use the transfer portal. But Clemson, you have no excuse. For right now, Dabo's a 6, but if they win that could easily go down to a 4 or 5, maybe even a 3. And in my sleeper for a coach that could be on the hot seat, he's not on the hot seat right now, is Matt Campbell at Iowa State. He's a very low 1.5 right now, but his seat is ice cold right now. But if they lose and they keep losing, and it's by more than 10 points, I think his hot seat starts to get hotter and hotter. Who's your sleeper head coach that could be on the hot seat?
Wow. Sleeper. I know they've won their first 2 games, and they have another cupcake game before they head into play USF. But if Mario Cristobal struggles through the ACC, he's got to be one of those guys that, when he came to the U, as they call themselves, the U, he promised to return them to winning status. And after what happened last year, and if he has any more of those gaffes that he had last year during conference play, and if they go in a week from now and they go to Tampa and USF embarrasses them, I think he's probably right now on a 4 or 5. But if they lose to USF and then they struggle during conference play, I think that jumps to an 8 or a 9 for him.
Okay, and I think that's going to wrap up tonight's podcast. We will see y'all back here tomorrow night and then Saturday night for Colorado State, Colorado. So I will see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, Bradley.
Sounds good, bud. Yep.
Yep.